Hi, Jeff Lawton here for my fourth quarantine Q&A coming out of Melbourne hotel room. We just have about 4 days to go and we're out of quarantine and heading north to the Daytona farm. So I'm going to get into a few more questions to see how many I can cover. Right, our first question is Betty Bethbard. Sorry, Betty. Betty Bethbard. Thank you for offering your advice. I'm hoping to grow some vegetables in my garden. I have lettuce plants and compost should arrive soonish. I also have cardboard boxes. I'm thinking of doing a no-dig bed on top of my lawn, Charles Dowding style. Good idea. But would welcome your thoughts. I'm worried I won't get enough compost and I don't know about the quality of the soil underneath. Having only moved in a year ago. Also, I should receive some tomato plants. Would they thrive in my tiny conservatory, even if they don't have a lot of space? I'm based in the UK, so sunshine, heat is not guaranteed. Yeah, I know your situation. Righto, the first thing I would do just to get a quick result is I'd get a garden fork, stiff garden fork, and I'd prise it down, water that lawn if it's a bit hard, and dig down and shake it down, like actually get on the fork and rattle it down until it's pretty deep, and then just prise it. Don't turn it over, just prise it. So the first one's going to be hard. The next one, move back 6 to 8 inches, go down again until you get that sort of lifting effect. Just come back, just lift it and just lift it like that, just lift it. So you get a bit of air in the soil without turning everything over, just get it up a little bit, get that little bit of decompaction going on. Then what I do is I'd put down some chunky veggie scraps down on that soil, cabbage stalks, broccoli stalks, chunky sort of fruit and veggie scraps. Don't put down citrus, don't put down onions, but put down all the other stuff where you're going to lay your cardboard beds. Don't make them bigger than you can reach. So about 1.2 meters you can reach across with your hand on both sides. So you want to be able to reach to the middle from both sides. Any further, you'll have to walk on it. That's no good. You don't want compaction. You did all that work to decompact. You want the worms to come up and eat those chunky vegetable scraps. Then if you can, put a little bit of manure down if you haven't got a lot of compost. Save your compost for planting in. So put a bit of manure down. If you can get some local horse manure, that's good. Donkey manure, cow manure. If it's chicken manure, use older stuff, right? Try and get sort of aged chicken manure, not too fresh. So you can just sprinkle that in amongst the veggie scraps and then cover with a thick layer of cardboard, wet it, get it wet first. Fill your wheelbarrow full of water and get the compost and get the cardboard soaking wet so it goes down like a big slop and it's soft and soggy. You don't want to put down hard cardboard because it's kind of stiff and it's going to sit all awkward. You want it to wrap over the garden and you will have raised it up a bit by the decompaction action. And mark your footpaths, get them on contour if you've got a slope. Get your footpaths about 2 foot wide. Right, 60 centimetres, that's the width of a wheelbarrow. You need a wheelbarrow to deliver and extract from the garden all your produce. So get your footpaths 2 feet wide. Get your garden bed about 4 feet wide, so 1.2 metres. And don't bother about decompacting the footpath because that's going to get compacted from you walking around. Put your decompact, a little bit of prizing, right down to the bottom of the garden fork. If you can, rattle it down. Get on there, a bit of aerobic exercise, rattle it down, prise it, come back, prise it. Everywhere you're going to put the garden. Veggie scraps, manure if you can, right, if you can get manure, because compost is going to be more expensive than manure. Then thick cardboard, wet and sloppy, newspaper as well if you like, overlap, nicely overlap. Cut all the light out. And then really thick straw. You want some straw or hay mulch. Really thick, 6 inches minimum, 150 mil minimum, 8 inches, 200 mil, right up, 10 inches, doesn't matter, right? As thick as you like. Then get your hand, put it into the mulch and rattle it around like that until you sort of curve out a little hole and you'll find the straw will just kind of nest together and tangle together, making a nice smooth hole, about this big. Right? So it will be down about that far, rattled round about that. Then put, a few inches of your compost in there. Pour the compost in the hole, and it will be a little pocket of compost down below the surface. Leave 25 mil an inch below the surface. Don't come right to the top. Right? And you don't have to go through the cardboard and newspaper. As it's soaking wet, just get a knife and stab through it. Get a strong knife and stab through it. So you've stabbed through, but you haven't really opened it up to the air. Use your compost there. So you'll spread your compost through the garden. You won't have to use much compost. Every single planting hole, all the way through the garden. So you're spreading the compost really thinly, but you're distributing it evenly through the mulch. Now that compost over the growing season will inoculate that mulch and create more and more soil additions. It'll increase the humus in your soil because the organism in the compost and the mix you've made will spread out. So you're growing soil as quick as you're growing veggies, and you grow really successful veggies. Now you can use the same technique in your glass house. Just clean up a garden bed in your glass house, right, and garden right there on the ground in the same way. Just come in so that you've got a nice garden bed you can reach over. Now it's going to be narrower if you're reaching to the edge of the grass. So you're only going to be 2 feet of garden bed here, about 600. I can only reach to the edge of the inside of the glass. So put a path in so you've got that edge right up to the edge of the glass. And your tomatoes will grow fine. This time of year, you're starting early, you're going to have no problem with the tomatoes. In a glass house, no problem. You're probably going to get them outside. I don't know whether you're in southern England. But if you're in southern England, you'll get tomatoes outside by planting at this time of year. But if you've got any doubts, grow right in the glasshouse, actually in the soil. Start a process in there. It'll work fine. It'll work fine. In southern England, I've got tomatoes right up until September, October, inside a glasshouse growing in the ground. So, and have fun. Right? Enjoy it. You won't have much weeding to do, because you hardly any with that cardboard and paper cover. And you won't have much trouble fertilising it. You won't have much trouble watering it. And you can crowd them in pretty close. You can go closer because your water is, watering is really reduced. Your watering demand's reduced and your fertilising demand's reduced. And the extra work is going to be great, and you can really cram it in and get more work done. All right. Our next one is Angela Gibbons, Permaculture Materials Resources for Kids and Youth. All right, there's a fantastic book called Outdoor Classrooms, written by Janet Millington and Carolyn Nuttal. Janet Millington is a student of mine, and it's actually been accepted as a textbook in Australian schools. There's also a lady called Leonie Shanahan, who's produced both books and videos about working with permaculture gardens, children and schools. So she's a student of Janet, so she's one of my grandchildren of permaculture genealogy. So Janet was one of my early students, and Leonie's a student of Janet's, and they've both produced materials for schools. Now there's another organisation in Australia run by Aaron Mears, who's another student of mine. Aaron also runs a blog site called Lulu's Perch, L-U-L-U, Perch, like the perch of a bird, it's a great YouTube channel to follow. There's loads of resources out there, more and more all the time. Okay, next one, Jody Meadows. Have you ever done seed guilds like Sepp Holzer? If so, what seeds do you mix together? Yeah, we do a lot of seed guilds. We do all sorts of combinations. I've grown cowpea with sorghum and as a guild for forage that works really well. And I've grown capsicum in amongst it and corn in amongst it. So I've grown sorghum and cowpea as a cover crop forage, nitrogen and carbon, and grown food crop in it as a sort of vague seeded rough area system. We've done the same with pumpkin, Right? And of course, we've done the classic cowpea as a bean, corn and squash. So we do those in different combinations where we mix things together. We'll often mix radishes in with a new cover crop to get penetration with deep roots, especially daikon radish. There are all kinds of combinations you can put together and put mixes in. What we'll often do is we'll put down a cover crop, we'll condition the ground, or either decompaction or actually a little bit of a scratched rotary hoe to make a seed bed. We'll dig it over a little bit, disfavor the weeds. We'll throw our seeds, our seed mix, and then we'll put a very, very thin layer of mulch. I mean, 1 bale of straw to 40 square meters. We call it a scatter mulch. It kind of imitates a hydro mulch. Get it wet. The mulch is just thick enough to cover the ground, but not suppress the germination, but it's enough to hold that extra bit of moisture. You get a fast germination. Up through that thin mulch come all your seeds, and you just let them self-select. And then if you want to, you put a bit more effort in to actually prune and suppress the fast-growing green manure crops you've got in there to the actual seeds that you want. That works wonderfully well with some tall crops like maize and corn, and rampant crops like melon and pumpkin. So you're generally going for the really hardy crops like that over the broader area. And if you're going in a small area, you can do similar systems down to things like scattered lettuce and fast picking greens. So, and what you're doing is in that case, you're overcrowding and you're picking the ones that grow the fastest, allowing the slower ones to come through and take up the space. That's really good fun. All that stuff's great fun. You get it right, very little work. It really reduces the work you have to do. Okay, next one. Patricia de la Gaza. Hi, Jeff. Thank you for offering to answer questions. I have cherries, plums, apples, pears, fig trees, peaches in our garden in Belgium. We're seeing big climate change, and it's the 3rd year our plums bloom with no bee on site. Too early, too cold. Thus, no fruit. Did you have any snow this year? We don't have snow in Zaytuna Farm. We're subtropics. We've got bananas and mangoes. But we have seen a 50-year event where we got -9 an hour before dawn for 6 nights in a row. And that does happen every 50 years or so. The old fellas will tell you that stuff. So are you planning differently in function of climate change? Would love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, you do have to plant diversity. This is one way you get around those 50-year events and the general climate warming. So you put in crops and trees that lean a little bit to the warmer side of your climate, but you also put in the ones that are colder side of your climate. So you can get those low battery mode already. There we go. So you can get those changes in each direction. Now, where you have your what you get is the too early, too cold. So you're getting an event there. You're seeing the 3rd year our plums bloom with no bee in sight. They've actually thawed too early. That's quite a common thing. You're hearing that quite a lot in the cold climate. You get an early spring bloom and the bees aren't out and active, right? So there's a couple of ways you can do this. One, you can warm the bees up early by getting a good microclimate for the bees. So get a nice microclimate, sunny spot for the bees. So you get bees active earlier in the spring. One way to go. Get the pollinator active earlier. You know, get your bees coming out of your glass house or something like that, or a glass house, a removable microclimate over your bees that you can then take away, so get them early. But also keep the soil well insulated around your fruit trees. So before your fruit trees come active in the spring, put some extra heavy mulch down so the soil stays insulated and stays cold. Now, that's an unusual thing to do to your fruit trees. You know, you normally want them to warm up, but if they're flowering too early and then you have a frost after the early flowering, you'll lose them. You'll lose the flowers, you'll lose the fruit set. So keeping a nice heavy mulch or making sure at the end of winter, before you get that quick early, you get an early warm up and you get an early flowering and then a frost after. That's what will make you lose your fruit. So make sure you've got nice thick mulch, keeping the soil cold longer. Now you can always remove it if you want them to start warming up at the right time. You can always pull it back. There's a little bit of design disturbance, but we're good at design disturbance to increase the sort of diversity of action. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of disturbance. So, Bill used to say a matrix of disturbance across the landscape is often the most fertile. Some heavily disturbed area, some mildly disturbed area, some areas with no disturbance at all, and a matrix of edge between them all. So we've got to think about this in relation to the climatic edges during the year and seeing that variation. So, you've got figs and you've got apples, but you've got peaches. So that's quite warm to have peaches. So I can tell by, you've got cherries. So you get quite a lot of cool to get cherries, and to get peaches and cherries and cherries and figs in the same garden. You're doing pretty well. You've got a stretch there already. So just look at the warmest you can grow, look at the coldest you can grow, and see how you can adapt to try and microclimate favour those different stretches of species. And I think we'll be fine. Right? Go a little bit further and go a little bit towards the cold and a little bit towards the hot and a little bit towards the dry. And except they don't all come ripe, I don't have a boom year in each one. Altogether, you don't have them all together booming, but you'll get this'll boom or that'll boom, one will be a bit less. Where I am, if we have a really dry spring, we'll get great mangoes, but we won't get great custard apples. But if we have a really moist spring, we'll lose our mangoes, but we'll get great custard apples. So it's roundabouts and swings. One booms one year and one booms the next year. What you gain one side, you lose the other, but we get something every time. Okay, this is where we win over monoculture. So our next one is Pickles 10. And hi, Jeff and family. I would like to know when the next online permaculture course will be run. We're setting up now to do our promos, and you'll see our promos coming out very, very soon. I'm thinking that now during lockdown would be a really great time to have an online course. What do you think? Possible? Happy quarantining? Well, we're not sure whether the stress of the quarantine is going to make it difficult for people to engage and want to take the course right now. But we're thinking we're kind of getting used to quarantine. We've had the effect of people realizing they need to be more self-reliant. I think it's time to release it. We've got some wonderful promo videos we've been waiting to give out for the online course. And it's literally in the preparation stage right now. We don't like to just release. We like to actually have a lead up where we're giving people extra information. So we've got all these beautiful films and animations we've made, and films and animation included, that we want to release and give everybody some free extra information to realize the quality that we offer. And we have really built some quality into our course now. We've added more and more and more. It's an enormous amount of material that we give you during the course, make you feel very confident, and some wonderful systems of how to design, how to engage in design, and the questions to ask on every consultancy and every design element that you ever want to ask about when you're designing. Okay, Tess Blanc has a question, a statement here. It's just patterns, please. I mean, Tanya, you're asking me to do a talk on patterns. And patterns are one of the most transformative sections of a course, when people realize that patterns are the physical expressions of energy captivated and captured in media. And if we work with the patterns that are all around us, that have always been around us, and we're part of that pattern, and you know how patterns work in so many different ways, not just in the physical, but in the timing events, in the patterns of sound, even the patterns of smell and the patterns of taste. All our senses are involved in pattern recognition. And when we align with patterns, we're aligning with systems that give us more efficient capture of energy, which reduces our energy input. So this is something really important. And once you've done your permaculture course, I think that the realization that you have pattern confidence, or you have a growing pattern confidence as you gain experience in the permaculture design world. This is such an important element of permaculture. And it's one that's not included in most disciplines. Permaculture involves many disciplines in the way they connect together. But one of the glues of permaculture, the glue that sticks the disciplines together, is pattern understanding. Because in the pattern understanding is the efficiencies that are used in natural systems. So that's my quick rave now. We'll do an extra video involving a real pattern understanding lecture. I can see that would be appealing. Our next one is Rachel Kuransky. Do you feel that mulch and wood chip are appropriate all the time in every climate? We've been really having a hard time since adding it out there in the high desert of Southern California. It makes the trees and grapevines very happy, but the lower plants, not so much. It attracts bugs and slugs of every kind to the moist environments, and our plants are struggling. We do not have a duct deficiency. Thank you very much. All right. Wood chips are not good for non-woody plants. Wood chips will work around fruit trees and woody plants, but herbaceous plants, herbaceous means non-woody, they're not ideal because wood chips attract fungi, and it's the forests that are high in fungal dominated soils. Your non-woody plants will favor bacterial dominated soils, therefore herbaceous mulch and soft mulches. Now, if they're if they're absolutely too moist and too slimy, right, then you'll be creating this slug habitat. So you don't want slug habitat. So you'll just have to open it up a little bit more. Now, make sure that you're actually attracting beneficial predators into the garden. So lots of color will confuse the pests and encourage the predators. Allowing the wind to come through the garden and create scent. So lots of scented plants, giving lots of scents, lots of color, lots of different shapes and forms, not just uniform shapes. Now, mixing things up in different patterns, sometimes rows this way in short distance, sometimes rows this way, mixtures within the row, mixing crops across the row. So, and then favor the predators with lots of perches. Right? So lots of perches for birds, bird baths high enough away from cats, of course, as predators, perches high enough away from cats, rock piles and rockeries attracting nice dry thermal mass for lizards and reptiles, and also ponds for frogs. So when you favor the predator and disfavor the pests, confuse the pests and favor the predator, and make sure you're not creating predator pest habitat. Make sure you're not creating slug and snail habitat. And look into the temperate climates where you have a lot of slug and snail problems. Now, you say that you're in the high desert. It depends how high. If you go high enough, you've gone into a temperate desert where you can, because it's not so hot, because you're hot, every 100 meters up is equal to 1 latitude away from the equator. And California can be quite high. So you might be high up, you might be in the high, cool deserts. If you overwater there with your soft mulches, you may be creating that slug and snail habitat. Check it out. You might be in that situation. So in that case, top watering might not be the best way to go. Specific drips to your trees, and maybe a different watering regime, not from the top, drip line down below the mulches. So your top mulch is not going slimy and attracting those slugs. Check it out. Let me know how you go. Okay. Cooper May would love to hear your thoughts on high altitude agriculture at the tree line or above. That's a difficult landscape, of course, and you've got different parameters put on you when you get up in that cold, high altitude. Often you could be in cloud, and so you can be deficient in light. Also, you can be at high altitude and near the equator, so you can be cold, but you still don't have a day length change because you're still getting a tropical day length, winter and summer. You need to store heat up there. So there is a high altitude, Rocky Mountain High Altitude Institute. Jerome Ostenkowski works there in the Rocky Mountains. He has a lot of production out of a glass house, which also helps heat his 2-story house. So he's getting a benefit from thermal mass in his glass house, which really helps him. So you tend to go a little bit indoors and get a lot of glass house or polytunnel advantage, but it doesn't stop you creating particular styles of food forest. So you're still getting, you're going to get only a specific group of trees that will work as productive trees. That makes it easier to design. You've got less choices. So you select from a smaller group of trees, but you still can put together a food forest perennial productive system. You're tending more and more and more to be inside a glass house because your house is going to be something that you need to concentrate on. It needs to be passive solar, thermal mass heat gain, rocket stove advantage, because you're going to put a lot of energy into not freezing to death in winter up there. So those are some of the clues. Now you can go an underground system where you've got an underground glasshouse covered garden. So you're now heating the soil as a thermal mass underground. So you've got a kind of underground garden, you're pit gardening with a glasshouse cover. So there you can extend your season because you've actually got the thermal mass of the soil as your heat gain. So look up those systems, they're kind of interesting. Okay, Stephanus Balas. Hi Jeff, I hope to pass quick the time staying in quarantine in Greece. It's the same as we would like to ask you if the fruit trees that you plant in your food forest come from seed. They are wild with totally new kind of fruits or not? Do you put trees from seed that are stronger than the others? Thank you for your inspiration and keep up the good work. Well, what we do is both. We grow a lot of our fruit trees in our nursery from seed, and then we plant grafted species as well. With the grafted species, we get a faster production, so we get quicker production in a few years, and we know we've definitely got those varieties because they're grafted. But then the ones that we grow from seed will give us a variant. So we have variations. Now, they won't all be good, but some will be specifically better. So, for instance, we've grown guava from seed. Wild guava in our area grows on the side of the road. It grows very successfully, and anybody can grow guava where we are. So, but they're in fruit right now. They're in a guava glut right now in Zaytuna. March is the time most guavas fruit. But because we've grown a lot of guava from seed, we've grown them in our nursery, then planted them out. We've got guava coming in a month early, and some going right up to 6 months later. So we've got some guava still fruiting, not many, but some fruiting right out in September. We're trying to get guava to fruit for more than 6 months a year. So the ones that fruit in September, we're growing from that seed to try and extend the guava season even further, because we'd like to get that fresh fruit for longer. We don't want everything ripe on one day or 1 month. We want many months from every type of fruit tree. So we are selecting. But then on the trees that are a little bit less fussy, or more fussy, should I say, some specific we're starting with what we've got and then seeing if we can gain variety change from seeds later. So that's what we're doing. Okay, great talking to you. I'm about to run out of battery again. We'll start one more tomorrow, and I'll see you then.